There's actually studies that show that empathy decreases over time in medical trainees. The first year med students came in with really high levels of empathy for patients. And what they found is that it's like a stepwise decline over your years, like of medical school into residency, into practice. This is likely due to time pressures, being desensitized to other suffering by seeing it so much, burnout. So people learn to numb their empathy. And so what we're doing is we're elevating the empathy while presenting solutions that people can do as health providers at these three levels: micro, meso, and macro.
Hello and welcome to the Conspiracy of Goodness podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Linda Ulrich, and I'm also the co-founder of the mothership website of this podcast called The Goodness Exchange. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce Dr. Latif Murji, a true social innovator. He is an artist, a physician, and a musician. And he brings all those worlds together with one clear purpose: to spark social change through creativity and empathy. It reminds me that innovation isn't just about technology. It's about new ways of seeing each other and new ways of caring for our shared future. And the proof is in the variety of projects that he's leading. As a physician and a community leader at the Scarborough Health Network in Toronto, he is deeply committed to health equity. As an innovator in health education, he has founded Stand Up for Health, a groundbreaking program that helps healthcare trainees experience the realities of social determinants of health. Now, this program is used in health networks, hospital networks, for training professionals all over Canada. He's also the frontman in an indie alt rock band called Thieves, sharing original music with thoughtful themes at local rock clubs and big festival stages. And he is the co-founder of the coolest thing called Poems in Passages, which brings poetry into the public transit system in Toronto as a source of beauty, healing in everyday life. Today's podcast episode is about what becomes possible when we lead with empathy, curiosity, and creativity. Dr. Latif Murji is showing us that medicine, music, and art aren't separate lanes at all. They're threads that can be woven together to heal and inspire and move us towards a future that's way more human and way more helpful. Welcome, Dr. Latif Murji.
Thank you, Linda. Really excited to be here.
Great. Well, I tell you, that is a long introduction because you've got so many irons in the fire. It's so crazy wonderful to meet someone like you who just is in this see a problem, solve it mode.
Yeah. Swimming deeply.
Well, I think that's why Jane, of all the folks that Jane could have mentioned to me in her interview, that's why she chose you, because you are such an example of this see it, solve it mindset. And I can't wait to dive into some of the corners of that today. But I wanted to start in a place that I think might get us going onto a landscape that I think folks are going to find pretty interesting and be able to use in their own lives. And that is this incredible superpower you have in mixing two worlds that most people think are separate. Most people don't think music it has anything to do with medicine. And you seem to keep those two things in constant conversation. So let's start out there, because this is a mindset that lots of us have two passions in our lives, and I'm not sure it's that easy to marry them, but you seem to have found the key.
Yeah. Thank you, first of all. I guess to me, I see them as quite related. Medicine is so complex that it's very much an art as well as a science. So there's so much creativity involved in medicine, especially when you're doing primary care and emergency medicine, and especially when you're working rurally and working with without the resources that are available in urban settings. You have to be creative. And so I see these both as forms of expressing creativity. And yes, medicine, the stakes are more directly higher in the sense of lives. But it's actually amazing to see how you can impact lives through music as well. That's honestly, it's always been my dream, and I'm really lucky that I get to do that now. But to answer your question, like I see these two fields as actually very related, and I would argue also that a lot of people in medicine would see that. There's a lot of really talented artists and just all around creatives that go into medicine, and it's almost a shame that um, a lot of us don't get to express that as much because medicine today with our healthcare system is so all encompassing in terms of the amount of workload. And that's just kind of like a systems level issue. Um, but I'm lucky that I've kind of forged a path or managed to find a path for myself that allows me to work on music with so much of my time and energy while still being able to serve the communities I do through medicine. So I'm enjoying this moment right now.
Okay. So right there, you struck a chord that I'm going to take a tiny detour in the conversation, but I think it's also something that you could share with us that might break something open for folks. I remember in our pre-call, one of the moments where I was just blown away was when you were talking about how you make time, how you devote time to the music, and then you have a very kind of strict personal way that you devote time to medicine, you devote time to this and that. Talk to us a little bit about that, because I think what happens to most people is they invest as much as somebody has invested in medical school, and then they just kind of treat something like music in their lives as something they fit in once in a blue. But that's not what you're doing, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's easy to see how that can happen, right? Like I remember thinking ahead when I was a medical student and feeling like I was gonna fall into almost a trap in terms of knowing that there's like a lifestyle creep, or there's like this idea that you need to be working all the time because you went to med school and you spent so much time training that now you need to like constantly be working in medicine. And I personally don't think that that's like a sustainable thing for me. And I actually feel that I'm a better doctor because I'm doing different things and expressing my creativity and taking breaks from medicine for periods of time. That allows me to have like my energy back when I'm seeing patients. So going back to what I was saying is I remember like saying out loud to several people that like when I'm a fully fledged doctor one day, like this is the amount of money I'll be happy with. This is the amount of days that I feel like I need to work. Like I don't need to you don't need to always be getting more and more because there'll always be more, and then you won't have time for other things. You'll crowd out the time and space needed to be creative and to do the other things that you're really passionate about. So I was like very intentional about that. And I was openly, like, I tried to create accountability for myself by being very open about that. And then, you know, the COVID pandemic played a role in this as well. It's like a moment where, first of all, I ended up working a lot in emergency departments because that's what was needed. But at the same time, all of the world kind of slowed and came to a standstill in a way. And it was a really like important opportunity to reflect and see where my life was going. And I was like, it's time to do music for real and really put everything into it because if I don't do this now, it's never going to happen. So it's almost like, you have those snow globes and you flip it upside down and shake it up or whatever. And now everything can fall freshly in the way in a new way, and it's up to you to have the agency, or at least I had the agency in that moment, fortunately, that I could reshape my path, and I found a way to make things work, at least in this phase of my life. So I'm proud of that and feel fortunate to have this opportunity.
Mm. I tell you, that is a great way to put into words the hopes and dreams of all kinds of people. Back to one of your very first statements, you said to yourself, "What's enough?" You didn't have to just keep chasing more and more, and I think that's a treadmill that's super easy to get on.
Yeah, enough is a
Yeah,
key word there.
yeah. And then I also want to have you speak just a little bit about this. I mean, you aren't just conveniently taking an Uber down to the local ER and serving. You're going to some pretty remote places all over Canada, right?
Yeah. So coming out of medical school or coming out of residency, myself and a couple of my closest friends used to fly up to rural northern communities, and we kind of had like a rotation of different communities that are underserved that we would work in as family physicians, emergency doctors, do hospitalist medicine, and that was like a really great thing that we had going. And we would like live together while we were up there, and then come back to Toronto. And then I had Stand Up for Health going on, and I was writing music, so it was like a good back and forth. And teaching at U of T, and a lot of that still continues today. Now I also have a job where I work remotely for one of those communities, for a site that has no physicians. So the nurses call me and we have consultations on certain patients. And occasionally I still go up to a few different communities to work emergency medicine. So over time, the role has evolved. And then I've picked up other clinical work as well in Toronto, which we can talk about in a bit. But yeah, it's always like I'm trying to find that balance and trying to find what's like rewarding to me clinically. And then, of course, in the non-clinical world, there's tons of stuff that I'm super excited about.
Well, we're going to try and talk about all of it. And I think I'll just follow your lead and ask questions about some of the things that you're mentioning as we go along here. We won't be too scripted. So you just mentioned Stand Up for Health.
Yeah.
And I want you to describe what that is, and then use that as a launching off point. Like, then tell us a little bit about your bio, because it all weaves together.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so Stand Up for Health is a not-for-profit organization, and it takes the name from the simulation that I developed in partnership with the community. So I grew up in Scarborough, which is part of Toronto. Scarborough is a super diverse eastern part of the city. Lots of newcomers, lots of people who are lower income, lots of people whose first language is other than English. And I grew up here. And so this is very much tied to my identity and my understanding of the world. And I had all kinds of experiences born out of being in such a diverse and racialized community. And then at some point, maybe I was like 20 years old and I was an undergrad, I learned this theory called social determinants of health. And this is what kind of tied my lived experience to like the health outcomes that my community members were experiencing. And then I started seeing, like, we started learning like facts, for example. It's like, oh, if you're lower income or you're a person of color, you're more likely to have diabetes. You're more likely to have heart disease. You're less likely to get vaccinated from COVID. All these, generally, a lot of these things are correlated. And there's factors that, social factors that are responsible for this, that are upstream. And we call these the social determinants of health. So what I noticed was that this like really resonated with me. And at the same time, with some of my peers who came from different backgrounds in university, it wasn't clicking for them in the same way. Like they still had good intentions, but it was more of a memorization thing rather than a lived experience. And that's why for me, I was like, oh, well, why don't we just create some version of a lived experience? Because that's where the empathy comes from. And then people can connect to the feeling and it will increase their empathy. It will make people more likely to take action. So that's kind of the motto of Stand Up for Health. It's knowledge, empathy, action. And we have a simulation that's using community sourced scenarios that people walk through. They do this in pairs. It's like a social learning kind of thing. There's trained facilitators that facilitate discussions around the simulation. And then there's a facilitated discussion, and there's actually like a jam session, like a design thinking ideation session. And so we take participants through these steps, and they actually come out with greater knowledge, empathy, and then hopefully action in their communities. And so this is all tied to like the way that I see the world, and I see, you know, advocacy for the people around us in three layers. So there's this model called micro, meso, macro. We call it the avocado model because of the three layers of the avocado. And then that's how we think about advocating for the people around us, our patients, our community members. So there's the patient in front of you. So that's micro. There's the meso, which is the community level or the clinic level. And then the population level is the macro. And that's when we think about population health and public health. And how can public policy change health outcomes at a population level, which I get excited by as well. So the whole thing to me is really fun. We have this learning tool called Stand Up for Health, and now it's used to train people in hospitals.
So I'm just gonna, if I wanted to really say what it does in one sentence, it's like we are turning out health professionals with beautiful hearts and great intentions, but there is a component in society that is left out. Like there's this component of understanding where other people are coming from that's sort of left out. Like you don't realize that certain populations are not getting the same level of care as certain other populations because of social norms or social contracts that aren't the same. And you're helping health providers understand that there are lots and lots of different ways to approach healthcare and do better with it, depending on how sensitive you are to somebody's culture.
Yeah, and it's like often a lack of resources, whether that's like financial or even social capital. Like there's so much that goes into it, and what we're doing, like we know that there's actually studies that show that empathy decreases over time in medical trainees. So they did a study, and the first year med students came in with really high levels of empathy for patients. And they would repeat this study every year. And what they found is that it's like a stepwise decline over your years, like of medical school into residency into practice, of empathy for your patients. And we think that this is likely due to like time pressures, to being desensitized to other suffering by seeing it so much, to burnout, all kinds of different pressures that make you feel like you don't have as much agency. And then there would be a cognitive dissonance. Like if you have more empathy, then you feel like you should do something about it. And then if you feel like you can't do anything about it, then it's actually harmful to feel so much empathy because you're going to just go crazy. So people learn to like numb their empathy. And so what we're doing is we're elevating the empathy while presenting solutions that people can do as health providers at these three levels: micro, meso, and macro.
Wow, that's lovely. Thanks for sharing that with us. I mean, I hope listeners can see something in their own world that might get a lot more clarity and a lot better systems by thinking that way. And that's something that you just come naturally that comes natural to you. If I do say so, with what little I know of you, it seems like you look at a problem and you don't blame the people, which is what so many people do. They just find who's to blame. You look at the system and the places in the system that can be optimized to get a better outcome. I just think it's the way your brain works. Am I right?
Yeah, I don't think there's too much use in blaming people for stuff. Like there is some individual responsibility for every like for a lot of things, but we need to collectively think of solutions. And often a lot of things are due to systems and environments and like general population level trends and like public policy. Like generally, I think in Western society, we over-index to individual responsibility around difficult situations that people find themselves in, and we need to really think about the context that leads to a lot of these issues, and work on that, because we have evidence that shows that if you change those contextual factors, those systems level issues, you can actually affect positive change at population levels. Like, we literally know this is true already, so we shouldn't ignore the evidence.
Yeah, it's so lovely. Okay, so all this, and I can't wait to get into the music and art part of this. All this ties back to your upbringing. Talk to us about how a youth thinks about these things that you observed, and then comes across Jane Thompson, and starts with a scholarship life.
Okay, yeah. So you're taking me real far back now.
Way back. Yeah, because we need to understand, like, you don't just walk into medical school. There was a whole person and a whole lived story before you walked into medical school. But you brought all of that with you. And then you got more social capital as you became a physician, so you could affect more change. Like, but what was that pre-part? Because that's where we want to help each other as well, is with some mentoring and all the kind of things that Jane talks about in her podcast.
Yeah, that's a good point. So when I was a high school student, so I was growing up in Scarborough, right? And as I mentioned, it's a very diverse place. So I had all kinds of formative experiences that made me who I am, or I have the worldviews I have now because of what I experienced and saw, and had, my friends experienced that kind of thing. And I'm really grateful for that, right? Like, for example, like a lot of my friends come from different backgrounds. I got to eat their food and talk to their parents and be in their homes, right? And that just made me very open-minded and understanding of different cultures. And I feel like that's like one of my advantages that I have now, even as a physician, but also as an artist, because I can relate to different people. So at that time in high school, like, because you're bringing up the scholarship. So this TD scholarship is for outstanding community leadership. And so I haven't thought about this for a really long time, but a couple of the things I did back then, in terms of this community leadership, were we had a really strong environmental club back then at my high school. And what I kind of did, so this existed before me. I wasn't the reason why it was so great. It was already great. There were so many amazing people doing great things. And then my contribution was seeing that we should just bring this to other places. So I guess I just want to try to always do something and take the next step. So what we ended up doing was we shared our model of all of the things that we were doing so well for the environment at our high school. We brought that to all of our feeder schools, all the elementary schools around us. And we kind of helped them and got those kids excited about, made them think that being an environmentalist is cool, which now it is. But back then it wasn't so much. So that was like something we could do at that time. And we actually got them all to become certified eco schools, which at that time was a big deal. And so everyone was behind it. And then the second thing was, I guess because I had that relationship with the feeder schools, one of my personal interests at the time, and actually still now, is improv comedy. And so we had an improv troupe that I was part of in high school. And so I figured, why don't we go to those same schools? Why don't we do a tour, basically? And then what could be the reason for this tour? Well, we can have a positive message, because then the principals will let us in. And of course, then we can help these kids who already look up to us. So we basically did big comedy performances for 500 kids at a time. They love slapstick humor, by the way. If you ever just want to make a kid laugh, it's very easy.
Hit somebody with a broom accidentally.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
An imaginary broom.
Yes.
And then we framed it so that our message was about being unique, being proud of who you are, your individuality. It's okay to be silly. You don't need to just blend in, because at that time it's like you're in this awkward phase where you just want to totally blend in. But we said, be excited about high school. Like, you don't need to have this apprehension, because we will celebrate you for your individuality, and you can join different clubs and all this kind of stuff. So we really quelled some of that anxiety that some of these students were having, and we got to do improv, and we got to tour and play shows. And I guess now that I'm thinking about this, maybe this is what made me feel comfortable, like performing and sharing my art, and I guess being ambitious around art. So all of these things, thanks for asking me this question, because now I'm realizing that they're all connected, and so that shaped who I am.
And then there's just the learning over and over and over again in improv that, failure is kind of a muddy term, actually. I mean, there's a lot of fails that turn out to be the best thing that possibly could have happened, because when you learn stuff from failure, you come up with a better idea. I mean, like, that's what improv is. It's just working off spur of the moment what you get, and that's life.
Yeah, life is a giant improv game.
Yeah, it totally is. Okay, all right. So this is what we needed to sort of put some context into the next part of what we're going to talk about, which is all this art that is so much about healing. It was obvious to me that where we were going, because I got on the YouTube and looked up all of your songs and read the lyrics. And, at your core, Dr. Murji, you are a healer. That's what you're doing. And just like my husband and I spent 37 years with our legs crossed and our hands on our lap listening to the stories of others, it sounds like you are a deep listener. And you let people change you and let people improve you. And then you are coming up with the next thought and the next great idea and the next great system and the next great words to a song. Let's take a break, because we've blown right past the time when I usually take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about art and music as a part of this world that needs to heal. You know how the constant negative noise in our digital lives feels like it's reaching a boiling point? Now, many of us have tuned out the news and social media almost entirely. Well, it doesn't have to be that way. There are newsworthy stories about amazing progress, innovation, leaps in human potential, and wonders in the natural world, and they're just not reaching the top of our feeds. We can have access to this, but none of us has the time, or maybe even the emotional stamina, to search through all the doom and gloom news to find what's right with the world. Okay, enter the Goodness Exchange. There, we are giving instant access to positive news for curious people. Did you hear about the recent Harvard study that found that exposure to just 4 minutes of good news can make you 32% less anxious and 18% more optimistic? Well, I don't know about you, but I need those kind of numbers in my life. So if you want to live with more joy and way less fear, it's really simple. First, you join us at the Goodness Exchange. Everyone around the world has the opportunity to access this kind of content. And we've promised no politics for about a decade, so you're safe from all that distraction as well. Second, you allow this new, more positive, balanced worldview to put a spring in your step again. It can change the way you react to your kids, your coworkers, everybody you come in contact with. And the stories we write about can make you the idea person in your circles. These challenging times call for us to wake up and take control of our perspective. The people who use the Goodness Exchange have the ability to react to the harshness of the world much different, because they know way more about what's right with the world. And that's a resource. So subscribe to the Goodness Exchange, our YouTube channel and the podcast, and use this content to live a more expansive worldview. It is still an amazing world out there, and you can be a part of it. Welcome to the Conspiracy of Goodness. Okay, we're back with Dr. Latif Murji. Too much to say about Dr. Latif. He's an artist, he's a musician, he's a physician, and he has found a way to pull threads from all that and all his life experiences and weave them together in a tapestry of really just heightened empathy and creativity that brings the world forward a little bit and a lot, I'm sure, too. So I want to get to this part that I totally get that medicine is a creative, beautiful way to live in harmony with other humans. My dad was the old town kind of doc, Latif. He was, everybody in this small farming town had our home phone number. They called him. He got at least 4 calls every single night of his life. And we never went on vacation because he was always waiting for somebody's baby to deliver, and they always went late. And he was in the service of others, for sure. And he was a creative guy too, just like the folks that you're talking about, that you know in your world of medicine. There's this other part of us that's actually all one. So I want you to talk about that, because I don't think most people really think that the level of musicianship that you're applying, you're not just dabbling, you're out there. And we'll leave some links in the show notes to some of the YouTube videos that I'm talking about. But please, connect these worlds for us a little bit. Talk to us a little bit about this world of music. First, just describe what you're doing in a little bit more detail.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm the front man of a band called Parachute Thieves. And I guess we would be called indie alt rock. And what am I doing? Well, we record music. Well, we write music, we record, we play shows, we play festivals, anything that is like exciting to do. I probably will want to do it. We make, so I've been making like album art. Originally I did it by myself, but now I realized, why would I do it by myself? But I can work with like people who are really good at visual arts. And so that's been really, really fun. And similarly, music videos and kind of visuals for the music, that's been a whole new project related to music. So there's so much going on. To like, all of these are different like expressions of artistry that are so fun and unique and rewarding, and it doesn't end. And to me, this is just like this, like, I feel like I'm living the dream in a lot of ways. And then at the same time, it is also like a ton of work. And almost like a lot of project management. But we also have a manager, so very lucky to have that. And there's a lot of collaboration with artists from all kinds of different domains. And so what we're doing is we are musicians trying to make new art. I'm trying to write about things that actually will really strike home for people, whether it's relating to experiences that are universal, like this song called I Am Both, which is about duality and about being both a masterpiece and a work in progress all at once. Or by writing about social issues and inequities that I see, that are informed by my own experiences, my clinical experiences, like the song Whose Land is advocating for Indigenous rights and thinking about vulnerable people that I've worked with, people who might be vulnerably housed, for example. And then songs like Placebo, which are like directly about, well, not directly, but it's the most obvious healthcare related song. And most of my songs are not about my clinical experiences at all, but just related to different themes and concepts that I am reflecting on. And I guess I feel lucky, and I didn't even realize this at first, but my own journey, like growing up in Scarborough, going into medicine, flying up north and working in underserved communities, all of these like unique things intersect in giving me like a really cool lens to write about. And that's actually great. that I didn't realize would be so fruitful. And now, it's kind of bearing fruit. So I just like to keep creating.
And the other guys in the band, are the guys, women? I don't know. I think they're all. It looks all men on the videos. They're physicians as well.
They're not physicians.
They're not
We
physicians.
met through music. Yeah.
Yeah, and they and I'm sure they bring dimensions to bear on
Yeah.
and now. So that brings me that brings me to a kind of an awkward question. You don't have to answer it specifically, but so the other folks in the band, they've been something that you may or may not have been in your life. But I tell you, you have a life in medicine, or in my case, dentistry, as a healer in other people's lives, as a trusted advisor in other people's lives. And then when you become the patient, everything changes. Have you gone through any patient experiences yourself? Because that's what the guys in your band have been patients before, so they know that other side of the healing equation.
Exactly. Yeah. And we talk about things all the time, right? As a band, it's like important to just spend time together. One of the guys lived with me for a period of time, and we had a lot of deep philosophical conversations. And yeah, like, I've had my own experiences being a patient as well. And that's actually, so the song Placebo, it kind of goes full circle. So it's about being both the the doctor and the patient, being both the community member and then the trainee and then the physician. So I kind of wrote that over several years. Me and Rob first wrote that song together when I was like, when we were at Laurier, which is my undergrad. So I was not even in med school. And then I finished it when I was practicing, like, so during the COVID pandemic, basically. So it has like this full circle component to it. And that's what makes it kind of cool. Because at least in my experience, I don't take years to write a song. So
Right.
it's a bit of a snapshot in time. Whereas this song is not. It kind of follows, like, I'm drawing academic terms into this, but we call it the
Yeah.
life course model. So it's different than a cross section or a snapshot.
Well, in that song, I read the words of that, and this placebo concept, at least to me, it seemed like you were proposing that often, a diagnosis stands in for a solution when it's sometimes not getting at the root cause.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that's pretty provocative, because people want to say that, medicine's just nailing it for us all the time. But talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So yeah, this is one of the themes of the song. There's a lot of entendres in the song Placebo, and one of these themes overall is this idea you mentioned, where medicine often is really like valuing the downstream solution, but what about the upstream solution? And when I think about healthcare, um, what about health? Like, is it just about the treatment, or is it about preventing the issue in the first place? What are the interventions that are not a pharmacological product? What about the interventions that are changing, like, the way that our society operates, so that people are not getting diabetes or cancers or whatever condition, mental health issues, right? These are upstream solutions, and this is where I think we need to pull back the lens and take a look at that, because then we can create healthier societies, and then our healthcare system would be less overwhelmed, because it wouldn't be about band-aid solutions, and it would be more about working together with other professionals, with other policymakers, to design a society that's actually bringing about health.
Right. Well, and that leads us directly and squarely runs us right into poems and passages,
Mm.
because that ease that's a lot of dis-ease in society can benefit from this project, Poems and Passages. If you just think of the word disease, it's not being at ease with the world around you. Talk to us about this idea. I just think it's brilliant.
Yeah. So Poems in Passage is
Oh,
a
Poems and Passage. Okay.
yeah. So Poems in Passage is a program where we put public art, in this case poetry, in public places. And the first place that we've done this for the past 2 years is the TTC, which is like the subway system in Toronto, which everyone takes. So it's like subways, streetcars, and buses. Instead of ads up top, we replace them with poetry. And it's cool because it gives, first of all, it gives us a chance to elevate underrepresented artists, emerging artists in the community in Toronto and Canada broadly. There's like a competition where anyone can submit their poem. So we have local poets, like they're like so overjoyed because their poetry is being seen by millions of people. There's over 1.5 million rides taken on the TTC a day. So a lot of people are reading these poems. We're helping beautify our city, right? We're replacing like ads which are trying to distract you and take your attention away and sell stuff to you with something that's designed really beautifully by world-class designers. And the words are obviously very beautiful and intentional and have an inspirational message and help people really take a moment to reflect while they're on their commute. And so that really has a big benefit for our commuters. And we were thinking, this in a way is a public health intervention, right? This actually can affect the population at large. The people who are interacting with these poems are sending us messages constantly about how they feel inspired and how this has changed their day and uplifted them in different ways. So it's a program that it feels like it's universally loved. And so we're just lucky to have been able to bring this back to Toronto. This used to exist actually,
Oh,
um,
it did.
like a decade ago, or a little bit more than that. When we were kids, we were reading the poetry on the subway, and we were wondering what happened to it. So we reached out, and we ended up getting the opportunity to bring it back. And so this is our gift back to the city.
I think it's a story, isn't it, of sort of one person's, I don't know if it was a brainchild, what you would call it, but there was somebody fundamentally at the helm of that passed away or something.
So yeah, there was someone. So first of all, this program, this type of thing, exists in a lot of major cities across the world. Like it's in New York,
Okay.
and London, for example, goes by different names in all of these different places. But in Toronto, it did exist in like the 2000s, and then we found an article that dates back to 2012, and the person who ran it, he just stopped applying for funding. He seemed to have disappeared. We don't know really what happened, but what we saw was that clearly it was gone. We hadn't seen it since 2012. And then, like the TTC and the signage companies, like everyone was saying, we really missed this, and there's no one to run it, so it's gone. And then 10 years later, we found this article, and then we basically emailed both of them, and surprisingly or miraculously, they all replied to the email positively. Even just getting a reply was amazing. And they said, yeah, like go for it.
Let's go. Well, I had to bring that little part of the story up because at the origin of almost everything cool in our lives is somebody who had an idea, somebody who had a burning passion, somebody who would just not take no for an answer. And then eventually it leads to something important like this that may need a new champion at some point. So I did want to cover that part of that story because there are lots and lots of people listening to this podcast episode who probably enjoy the optimistic project of somebody out there, not this particular thing, but 1,000 other things. And I'm always encouraging people to find what they're uniquely built to contribute. And maybe, like Latif's pointing out here, it's just a bunch of friends getting together saying, hey, whatever happened to that thing that we love so much, and bringing it back. So it's so lovely. Okay. So now we're talking about you're wearing so many hats: the physician, the teacher, the musician, the public artist. This is the reality check here. How do you balance all that with the kind of gentleness that I'm feeling from you? Because I know you now from two different conversations, and it's clear that you are kind of a director type personality. You get out there and get things done, but you're still so gentle. And a lot of people find it hard to imagine keeping all the balls in the air that you are, with that level of gentleness. Like, do you have any tips for people? Because there's folks like you out there who can and want to do a lot in the world, but maybe they just need a few of your pearls. Do you have some mantra that you say once in a while when things get overwhelming, or do you have some tips on time management? What do you got for us, Latif?
It's funny, Linda, that you use the word gentle because my name actually means gentle in Arabic. So, well done.
Okay.
But the way that I think about all of these things is, yeah, actually, like when you just list them together, it's overwhelming even for me. And it's like, oh, I have to do one of those things. It reminds me of stuff I need to do. But actually, the way to make it sustainable for me that I found is it's almost like I have seasons. And this can be thought of like at the macro or micro level, like whether we're talking about months at a time or even, today versus tomorrow. It's not like I'm doing 8 things or 8 different projects in the same 8 hours, because that wouldn't really make sense to do. It would just, you need to be able to work in a flow. And another key thing for me is working together with people that I trust and care about and I'm aligned with, and really coming from a place of, I think trust is really, really important, and friendship. So a lot of the things that I'm doing, I do with people that I'm like deeply connected to, like Poems and Passage. I started this with my best friend. Even Stand Up for Health, I started this alone, but I brought like a lot of our facilitators, we call them change agents. They were like my peers. And then one of my closest friends who I used to go up north with to work in ER, he became a co-founder of Stand Up for Health. So I'm working with the people that I know really well and trust. And that's a big part of it. And part of it is the seasonality. Like for music, there's like a recording season, or there's a songwriting season, a recording season, and a performance season. I try to structure it generally like that, because then I can, like, we all know what we're in, what we're doing, what are we focusing on. And then like today, I'm not working clinically. Like I'm just not seeing patients today. So there's certain days where I'm not wearing the doctor hat, but I might be wearing the musician hat or the teacher hat. I might be going in and doing a lecture or something like that. So there's that aspect of taking breaks from different things, sometimes for weeks at a time. But the one thing that I consistently am responsible for in my own life is the relationships I have with my family and my friends and the people that are important to me. So we're always in that season. Like I don't take breaks or days off from that. I make sure I remain connected to those people, because that's what like inspires me and nourishes me. It's very exciting for me to, like, I'm lucky to have a big family, and they're very supportive. And so remaining connected to my people is the one thing that stays.
That's the foundation, that a lot of people, um, in our day and age feel is slipping. Now, you're a Canadian, I'm American. We're having a lot of slippage in the United States right now in all kinds of relationships,
Yeah.
right? Like Slipping and sliding all over the place. Do you have some some touchstones or some ways that you've found that you remain connected to people even when you're trying to do all these things? Like, any good advice on how to nurture friendships and not have it be all about what your business, what your
Yeah.
next project is?
Being interested in what is going on with someone else. I think I learned this, like this saying that I feel like encapsulates things really well. It's more important to be interested than interesting. So, like, just care about what's going on for someone else, because every single person has like a unique set of life circumstances and their own story, and like just get curious about it.
What's that little phrase again?
It's more important to be interested than interesting.
Okay, I'm writing
And
that one down.
yeah, and personally, I like to call people,
Okay.
so I'll just call someone, and if we're able to talk, then amazing. If not, we'll talk a different time. But I make time for that, and I prioritize that, and it's just important to me. Like, I don't stuff my day with too many things, because you need to take a step back. You need to have time and space to be creative and to, like, I think there's probably evidence for this, but you're after an experience happens, like this is the theory of like experiential learning, for example. After you experience something, you have to reflect on it. Sometimes this reflection is active and sometimes it's passive. But even passive reflection is important. So even if you're just biking home after you visited a friend, you don't have to like listen to like a podcast or something to put a new thing in your brain. Like, just chill and just experience your surroundings, and like you probably subconsciously some of the conversation will play back in your mind and you will process it. And if you are constantly feeding yourself new information and that kind of stimuli, you won't have the time and space to even process what just happened, and then it will be lower yield for you. And it will probably also just be uncomfortable to feed yourself too much. So I try to like think about the people that are important to me, make time for them, talk to them, go for walks, make music, balance through seasons.
Perfect.
That's generally how I do it.
That reminds me of a little a word pairing you used in our pre-call that I think goes along with that. This notion of people forgetting how to just pick up the phone and call someone sounds like a crabby old person thing. But it's not. It's just to just pick up a phone and call your sister or call your neighbor in the town you used to live in to see if I'm telling you that the word pairing that I really love is shared mental model.
Mm.
Like, that can be something technical in how we all agree to treat patients, or it can be something how we all agree will the energy we'll put out on stage tonight, or it can be just in having a shared mental model of reality, like with your former neighbor or your sister. Talk to us about how that plays into sort of all this. I think we've stopped trying to have a shared mental model. I think we're all just wanting to dance to our own tune for a while here, but I think I would love to see us get back to that, the sharing part.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think last time I mentioned that in the context of Stand Up for Health, where we're using a shared mental model so that we all can understand, these social factors that affect health. And then if all health providers can understand this shared mental model, then we can communicate better as healthcare workers and to our patients. And I like how you're bringing this into like life, basically, because yeah, a shared mental model would be really helpful And it is something that I think I'm inadvertently doing, or it's happening, because when you communicate with people and you have an open heart and you ask someone with curiosity about how are you thinking about XYZ, then you start to understand the way they're thinking about something, right? Instead of just talking about the topic,
What was that? Wait, what was the sentence you used? How do
how
you?
how are you thinking about XYZ?
Oh,
So, like
I love it. Yes.
yesterday, I was talking to my best friend and I said, how are you thinking about the next few months of your life? Because he's approaching a transition period. And instead of me like assuming or thinking that I know what's best for him, like I know he's a really intelligent person and thoughtful person, and there's no way that I can know about his life as much, as many of the inputs as he has. So I just want to hear what he's thinking, and just like being supportive in that. That is part of the sharing of a mental model, because then we know
Mhm.
where each other are at, right? So
Wow.
that's one of the ways.
That's, it's so simple, but I share a family farm in Illinois with my brother and sister. And if we would start out more conversations with how are you thinking about this, that, or the other thing, we wouldn't fight half as much. We don't fight terrible, but we have disagreements. But neither of us are stopping to ask how the other person came to their way of thinking, or what they're imagining for the future, or whatever. We're just not.
Yeah,
This is
yeah. I
huge.
think, like, honestly, I learned it from him. So
Really.
like maybe this can go to another point. Is I think it's really important to surround yourself with people that you want to be like, in a way, because you will be like the people closest to you. Like there's this saying about, you're the product of the five closest people to you. um, that's obviously like a concrete number, which is, it's a spectrum, but the point is, the there's this like element of osmosis that occurs and mimicry that occurs. um, we've all experienced it. Like you end up saying the words or the expressions that your friend says, or you end up sounding like them, right? So it exists. It even exists in the way that you see the world, your frame, your level of optimism, like all of these things. So you can actively choose the type of people you want to be around. And then that also, on the other side of the coin, is you should try to be the person that other people will want to be around. Right. So
Yeah, we've
I
given
think
up
all
on
of
some
those
of
go
that
into
too.
it.
Yes. Now we got to take this thing full circle. You're absolutely right. I totally agree. And this is the way we want the musicians, artists, and physicians in our life talking. So I can't I can't thank you enough for joining us, Latif. And I'm going to wrap up with one last question. I always ask people what they really wish people knew. Like there's this umbrella of your life experience. If you could zoom out as far as you could zoom out and you just look at what you've learned, what people have shared with you, and what systems that your interest in systems has taught you, and your interest in your arts, when things are not quite right, on the evening news,
Mhm.
and you're just thinking what life has taught you, what helps you make sense of it all, or what have you. Is there anything you really wish people knew? What has life taught you?
I think one of the things that comes to mind is just like give people a chance. And what I mean by this is you might think you know someone or what they're going to do or say, but that doesn't mean that you should go into an interaction with that in your mind, because it will change the way that you approach the interaction, and they will feel that in your energy. And then you will just reinforce your pre-existing like worldview or view of that person, and then you're not really getting anywhere. realize that every moment is new and it can go in any direction and anything is possible. So in order to really like embody that, you need to put your walls down and your assumptions away and kind of be open-hearted, and also realize that like we are resilient. So like don't let fear prevent you from taking that approach.
It's beautiful. That is plenty enough, Latif. Give people a chance. I'd love that. Yeah, that's exactly right. I'm sure all aspects of your life teach you that over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on the Conspiracy of Goodness podcast. You are certainly part of that wave of goodness and progress that I always am raving about. And I hope that you'll come back sometime soon and give us progress reports on all these things. I am going to write a complete, very thorough article about this that will also be on the Goodness Exchange to accompany the podcast of video and audio versions. And we will put anything there that Latif wants to connect us to, because I'm going to put some of your songs there, and anything else where you're going to really be able to find more of what to do next if you want to keep exploring life with the same kind of curiosity and creativity as Latif is. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Linda. It was really fun talking to you.
All right. Have a great day, everybody. I hope this episode puts a spring in your step and all kinds of new ideas about how to combine your passions. Thanks.